Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock, March the 25th. Hopefully you can all see me. Welcome to this Digital Culture Network webinar, How to Create a Simple Website on a Shoestring. My name is Andy Leach. I'm one of the tech champions here at the Digital Culture Network. Just going to give latecomers a moment or two to join. While that's happening, perhaps you could just introduce yourself in the chat, say who you are and what organization you're with, if you're with an organization. That'd be really useful. This webinar is being recorded, and we're going to go through a little bit of housekeeping while we wait for people to join. So today's webinar is going to last around about an hour. We're planning to have a Q&A session at the end. So feel free to use the Q&A option on the interface if you've got any questions. We have BSL interpretation today, kindly provided by Claire and Danny. And also we have captioning provided by Maria, thanks to you guys in the background. If you do need closed captions in addition, there is the CC button on the interface that you can use. As I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded. It'll be available on our website in the next week or so you can refer back to it. If you want to use your emojis at various points, you can do so. In the background, I have my buddy, Karis, who will be looking after the chat. So if you do want to use the chat throughout the webinar, you are very welcome to do so. I won't actually be seeing the chat because I find it a big distraction, but Karis will be there looking after things. Okay, so hopefully everybody is sitting comfortably. We will begin. So a little bit about the Digital Culture Network, just to kick off. Many of you may have already used our service. For those of you who haven't previously, we are an Arts Council funded program. Our mission, our remit, if you like, is to upskill the sector in all things digital. We do that in a number of ways. We have events such as webinars, such as the one you're looking at today, and we also have live events up and down the country. We have a website, digitalculturenetwork.org.uk, and a knowledge hub on that website, which is crammed with articles, webinars, webinar recordings, case studies that you can use to upskill yourselves and find information. In addition to that, we offer one-to-one support, and this is arguably the most powerful part of our service. There are 13 tech champions on the team, and we offer free one-to-one support, and you can request that support by accessing our website, and one of our tech champions will be in touch regarding whatever is your area of interest. So you might have a difficulty, you might have an ambition. Hopefully we've got somebody on the team who can help you with that. So do use the service. To do so, just go to the website and click on the Get in Touch button, and that will provide you with this form. Just complete the form, and one of our team will be in touch to organize your one-to-one support. And we look forward to seeing you. Okay, so today's agenda is broadly as follows. I'm going to spend about 15 minutes or so talking about some of the fundamentals around planning your website. We are then going to do a live demo of a website building platform. We're going to be using Squarespace today. That will last around about 30 minutes. And then we're hoping to have a Q&A towards the end, 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how strictly I stick to my timings. Okay. So first of all, ask yourself, why do you need a website? So I would like you to put your answers in the chat, please. I'm going to activate the chat at this point so I can see. So there's no right or wrong answer to this question. It's just a little interactive bit of fun. So ask yourself, why do you need a website? And you can pop your answers in the chat. Information sharing, discoverability, promoting of work, publishing of work. Yeah, all really, really good. Visibility, marketing, a window on the world. I like that, Samir. Very good. Grants and competition applications, digital portfolios. So yeah, some really, really excellent ones coming in there. Thanks for sharing those. You need a website to be taken seriously by journalists. That's interesting. link to funnel to get business. Excellent. So all of these all obviously, tailored to your own needs and requirements. This webinar is really aimed, I would say, at beginners, um, individual artists and small organizations who are perhaps slightly nervous about the idea of creating a website because they haven't done one previously. So I'm hopefully going to demystify that and take some of that pain away. So for the purposes of this demonstration, the one that's going to follow, I have created this imaginary artist. He is a musician, he's a songwriter, and I've tasked this imaginary person to come up with an objective for the website. And very simply, he has put, I'm a Midlands-based musician and guitar tutor. I want to create a simple website to generate inquiries. So it's just a nice, simple objective. You might find that you have more than one objective, and that's absolutely fine too. But as we go through this process of planning your website, we need to keep that objective kind of in our mind, front and center, because everything that we do needs to revolve around meeting that objective. So once we've got our objective nailed down, we can start to think about the potential website structure. So I've created one here for this imaginary musician, and you can see I've done it slightly old school. I've just done it on a layout pad and scanned it in. That's absolutely fine. This does not need to be a work of art. It's just to get you thinking about the structure of your website, thinking about your audiences, what they might need from you. So you can see I've got a home page, I've got an About Me page, a session work page, a guitar lessons page, and a contact page. So really simple, just a 5-page website. And we're going to have a go at building this homepage very shortly. So we've got our objective nailed down. We've had a go at doing our website structure. The next thing we need to think about, before I go on, there's a little tool here which is really useful. And my buddy Karis, I'm hoping will put this link in the chat for you. This is called Glue Maps. And if you don't fancy doing it old school with a layout pad, you can just use this tool. You can type in the names of your pages into a really, really simple interface, and then you can save that as a file that you can refer back to. So that's the other way. If you want it to look nice and neat and digital, Glue Maps is a great way of doing it. So once we've defined our structure, we then think about our content. So what do we mean by content? So in simple terms, content is everything that appears on your website. So it's all of your copy. It's your text, it's your photography. You may have video or audio files that you want to use. You might also have downloads such as PDFs and Word documents, and you may even have brand assets such as logos, etc. So all of that is broadly your content. And in the real world, you would take some time to craft this. If you're going to be writing it yourself, try and write it in plain English, make it simple. Think about your objective. What is it that the website is there to do? And make your text and your copy as accessible as it can be so people can easily understand it. So let's fast forward and imagine that you've written all of your content. And in the instance of our imaginary musician, here is some of the content that I've created. So here's everything I've got for our homepage. And very simply, I've just used a Word document, and I've put all of my text in that Word document. And I've also collected some photography as well that I'm going to be using for today's demo. So I've had the luxury of doing that kind of in advance. So once we've nailed our objective, we've had a go at doing the structure, and we've got all our content together, the next step is mocking up some rough layouts, okay? And again, you don't need to be Picasso here. You can just do it really, really simply, scribble it on paper or do it in PowerPoint or Word or whatever tool that you're comfortable with. We're just going to create some very, very simple mock-ups of some of the pages of the website, okay? This is something I always get people I speak to on support calls. I always recommend this process because it's really about defining the hierarchy of the content. So for the homepage, for example, it's really important that you're setting out your stall. So the important stuff is right at the top. You're not making people scroll down and work hard to find out exactly who you are and what you do. So it's all about simplicity and keeping your messaging really simple. The other reason for doing these layouts is we are focusing at this point on content, and we're not focusing on aesthetics. We may be keen to get stuck into doing the design, but in actual fact, at this point, we're just creating the structure of the pages, okay? We are not tackling imagery necessarily. We're not tackling colors and fonts and branding and all that emotional stuff. We're just thinking quite analytically about the content of our pages. Okay. And this is going to be a great reference for us when we come to the next step, which is building the website. So here's one that I created earlier. Again, I prefer to work in a layout pad, so I've just scribbled this with a magic marker. You can use whatever tools at your disposal to do something like this. Online or offline is fine. So this is, in simple terms, the anatomy, if you like, of my homepage for this imaginary artist, this musician. So I'm going to walk you through this kind of from the top. So the upper part of the homepage consists of these three elements. We're starting at the very top with what we call the website masthead or the header. This tends to be present across all pages of the website, and typically it will contain your logo, your branding, or your artist name, your artist organization, if you don't have a logo. And it will also contain the navigation. And by navigation, I mean links to all of the pages within your website. Okay, so it's nice and simple, and that typically, as I say, appears across all pages. Below that, we have got what we're calling the introduction, and this is the name of the artist, a little bit of text about them or what makes them special, a call to action, which is like a contact button where you're giving the visitor a prompt, and we're going to get them to click contact. And we'll also have a nice image of this imaginary artist as well. So that's the introduction. The next part is the session work. So this musician to earn money does session work in the industry. So again, there's a call to action, which is a button here, which is hire me. So that is the next component, if you like, within the anatomy of this page. You can see this doesn't look pretty. It's just mocking it up. So I've got a structural reference when I come to design the website. Lower down on the page, number 4, we've got a customer testimonial. So somebody nice that a client has said about this person. And then below that, we've got the guitar tuition section, which is almost like his services. So this guitarist, musician, he offers private lessons. He works with schools and colleges, and he also does free work in the community as well. The final part of our website is the footer. So that typically would have contact information and links to things like disclaimers and cookie policies, etc. So that is the structure of our website or our homepage. And you would go through that process for all of the pages on your website. Obviously, I'm very strapped for time today, so we're going to be focusing mainly on the homepage. But what I'm kind of evangelizing here, you can do for all of the pages on your website. So the next step is to decide how we're going to go about turning this vision into reality. How we're going to build a website. We're going to use a website builder. What is that? Well, a website builder is an online platform that allows people to build websites quickly without needing any technical skills. Okay, so you don't need to be a coder. You don't need to know anything about HTML and CSS. You just have to have, ideally, a bit of an eye for design and composition, so that you can make a judgment on what looks good. There are many logos on screen here. So in my research, I've found there are actually loads of these, many of which I've never kind of heard of. Some of the popular ones, such as Squarespace and Wix, they tend to come up quite regularly in kind of independent reviews of the best website builders. So I'm focusing on Squarespace today only because I've got a bit of experience of using it in the past. Wix is, a very, very similar kind of product. So it's a case of trying maybe 2 or 3 of these products and working out which one you like the feel of. Okay, so we have recap. We've got our objective. We've had a go at putting a little draft together of our website structure. We've created our content. We've got our mock-ups or our wireframes, and we've found a website builder. Okay. I'm just going to talk about some of the advantages of some of these website builders. I guess the main thing is they're really, really simple and intuitive to use. If you can work out how to use PowerPoint or Word or common desktop tools, you should be okay to get up and running. It'll take a little bit of practice for sure, but there's nothing quite like rolling up your sleeves and just having a go with it. And it's actually quite good fun once you get the hang of it. As I said earlier, you don't need any technical skills. These products are designed specifically for people who do not have technical skills. The other advantage is they're quite quick to set up. So once you've done all of the steps I've described, you can get up and running fairly rapidly. They're also quite cheap and inexpensive. So you pay a monthly license and it takes all the complexity of things like web hosting out of the equation. By web hosting, I mean that's renting some server space for your web page to exist on. You don't need to worry about that really working with website builders. So it's all a great kind of one-stop shop solution, really, in simple terms. A caveat, however, there are a few compromises. Okay. So once you've built your website on one of these platforms, and you're paying your license fee each month and it's all running, you can't easily transfer that website to another platform. So let's say I built a website in Wix and for whatever reason I fell out with them, or I found a cheaper solution. I can't easily migrate that website to another platform. You're kind of stuck with it. You can obviously take all of your content and rebuild it elsewhere, but once you're up and running with the platform, you're pretty much locked in. These web builders do operate a templated solution, and we're going to look at some of these in a moment. So if you've got very clear views on the kind of creative delivery of your website, if your design, what you've got in mind is highly bespoke, then it might well be that these website builders aren't really going to achieve everything that you want them to achieve. Okay, you might have to make some compromises on design and layout. Um, the other thing to say is if they're perfect for small sites, they're perfect for simple sites. I would say they're ideal for individual artists, for example, or small organizations. Not so suitable for large or complex websites. So if your website has hundreds of pages, a web builder is probably not the way to go for you. If your website is potentially quite complex, if it's doing integrations with other systems, etc., again, a website builder may not be the ideal solution for that. So if you've got questions about any of that, or you're planning on embarking on a website project, um, give me a call, or follow the process of getting in touch with me through the Digital Culture Network website, and we can have a conversation about that. A lot of my calls are with organizations who are looking to create a new website, and I help them through that whole process. Okay, I'm keep looking to my left because I've got a timer going here and I want to make sure I don't run over. Okay, we're broadly on track, which is great. So I'm going to take a breath for a moment, and I would like you guys, please, to name suggestions for this imaginary musician. So you can see he's got a bit of a kind of Californian, West Coast, Laurel Canyon kind of late 60s vibe with his long hair. Acoustic guitar. If I'm not mistaken, it looks like a leopard skin print blouse from Wallace. So yeah, take a moment in the chat, please, to make some suggestions for the name of this artist. And Karis and I will be picking the best name and moving that forward in the demo, which will follow in a moment. Phil Mutton, love that.
Think
Guy,
Bran
short and sweet.
Brandy Snap is currently my favorite.
Brandy Snap, love that. Bobcat, that's pretty good. Velux Pants, those are jeans, I believe. Not that that person's me, of course. Jackie Daytona, some cracking ones coming in here, Andy in disguise. We'll never know. Moody New, like that as well. It's a pun. I love puns. Karis, what do you reckon? Do you want to go with Brandy Snap, or what about?
I think Brandy Snap.
I'll write it down so I don't forget. Okay, Brandy Snap. Thanks, everyone. There's some great, dude, love that. There's some great ones flying in there, and I wish I had a bit more time to kind of go through those and indulge myself. But I do need to crack on because we're about to jump into a live demo, so I'm totally at the mercy of my internet connection. So literally anything could happen. Okay, so as I said, Squarespace is the tool that we're going to use. I'm going to jump out this presentation at this point. And I'm going to toggle across to Google. So this is where you would start. So let's go to Google. So this is the start of the process in accessing Squarespace. Okay. So I'm going to type in here Squarespace. And it pulls back the website. click on the website. And here is the Squarespace website. Now, many of these tools will offer a kind of a trial period where you can try it without incurring any costs. And Squarespace is quite good. It gives you 14 days. You don't even need to put in any credit card information, so it's a good way of starting. There are others that you can have a look at. Wix, I think, has a free option as well. So there are various ones that you can investigate kind of at your leisure. I'm just going to click Get Started. So when I start, I'm provided these list of options. So step one is what's your site about? This helps us guide your experience. So you can see there's lots of default options here. So Brandy Snap is a musician. So I'm going to click in musician there, and you see it filters it down to various options. Let's click on bands and musicians. Click the little go arrow. Now, I should say before going any further, please don't worry about taking notes and trying to memorize all of this. This webinar will be recorded. This is not a kind of a training session. This is just me giving an overview of the product. I just want you to sit back and relax and just watch, and hopefully you'll get a sense of, do you know what? This actually isn't too difficult to use. That's my objective, really. So the next step in the process is asking me, what do you want to do with your website? So in my case, or Brandy Snap's case, we're going to promote a physical business. We're not selling products or courses. I want to showcase my work and expertise. I want to offer a contact form. Sell services. I'm going to select those for now. You can select whichever ones are relevant to you. I'm going to click Next. We're then given two options, build with AI or browse templates. I'm going to go down the browse templates route. And you can see based on my options, it's suggesting 3 templates are a good fit for me. And if I just roll over them on desktop, I can get a sense of how those templates are designed. Okay. There are a bunch more. There's 41 portfolio templates. And on the left-hand side here, I don't know if you can see on screen, it's got a number of criteria. So I can check and uncheck these, and I can peruse these at my leisure. And I can even select by topic. So if I click on entertainment, if I click on one at random, I can get a sense of what this template's like. And of course, what I can do is refer back to my wireframe, which looks like this, which is quite a neat way of jumping back and forth. I can also look at this template on mobile. So it gives a sense of how this kind of template looks. So I'm going to go back to templates. I'm just going to find one that I think broadly fits. Actually, that one looks quite good. I'm going to go with this one, I think, cruise. So I'm going to click on that. Looks pretty fit for purpose. Got some bits in there I don't really need, but that's fine. So I'm going to click start with this design. And it's just setting things up for me in the background. You may have to create an account to actually access this dashboard, but that's a straightforward process. You don't need to pay any money at this point. So this is the interface. I've got some options down the left. We're really going to be focusing on website and pages. I've got a prompt at the bottom to subscribe. So you can see my free trial ends in 15 days. So I've got 15 days to play around with this design. And I've got some options at the top. So let's take a look at these options at the top to start with. I'm going to click on this little paintbrush, which is site styles. When I do that, I can click on themes. And this has a number of preset designed themes, which I can have a look at. So by clicking these, you can probably see that my design, the colors, the fonts, they're changing depending on which I select. So if I just pick one, and let's say I'm not crazy on the font, I can go in and I can tweak just the fonts. I can also, if I want to, tweak the colors. So you can do that dynamically. And this is making those changes site-wide. So these are kind of what are called global changes. So I'm going to run with that one for now. I'm not being overly precious about this. So I'm going to click save at that point. Okay. And scroll down. Now, the next thing I'm going to look at is this site header. So you can see there the names of my navigation doesn't really conform with what I've got here. So I need to change those. So we do that by clicking the exit button. And then I'm going to click on pages on this left-hand menu. Here's a list of the pages on my website. So it's about, gallery, music, blog, and contact. About, I'm happy with. Gallery, I want to change. I want to be session work. So there's a little dial here. I click that and I simply type in session work. So that's the page title. I'm going to copy that because there's also a navigation title as well. They do slightly different things. And if this website was brandysnap.com, I want this page to be brandysnap.com/session work. So it's got a nice, meaningful, accessible name. And I'm going to save that. And you can see that's changed on my interface. And it's as simple as that. So what else do we need? Let me refer back to my sitemap. Session work, guitar lessons. Okay. So music, I'm going to change to guitar lessons. It's the same process. Let me see if I can do this typo free. So that's the page title, the name of the page. I'm going to copy that. That's the link, if you like, in the navigation. And this is my URL. So it's brandysnap.com/guitar lessons. Click save. Okay, now at this point, I don't really need a blog. I can always add it later, but I'm going to delete the blog. And I do that by just clicking on the little trash can icon. Click that. Are you sure you want to delete that? Yes, please. Confirm. And the blog has been removed. Contact, I'm happy with. So that's got all of the navigation options that I need. So you can also see on here, I've got a login button. The template comes with this by default. I don't actually need that. So I'm going to click Edit Site Header. I'm going to click on the login and you can see I've got my little trash can, which is a consistent icon meaning delete. I'll click that and it's gone. I've got social links on here. Strictly speaking, they weren't in my wireframe, but that's okay. I'm quite happy to keep those social links as well. So I'm going to save that. And that is the first part of our wireframe completed. So let's take a look at this introductory section. So we're going to call this person Brandy Snap, aren't we? So all I do, I just roll over the section. You can see each of these are built as sections. And I just roll over all of the elements and click on them. And then I can change them. So I just highlight that text as you would do in Word. Brandy Snap. Put in a return there. Now, I mentioned earlier about the importance of creating your content. What I've done here, I've got all of the content for my homepage already kind of selected, if you like, or pre-written. So I've got a subheading here, professional musician, session guitarist, and guitar tutor. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it in here. Whoops-a-daisy. So I don't want that to be as big as my name. So what I'm doing, just to show you, I'm clicking there and dragging, and that just shows a grid in the background. If I want to move elements around, I can do that. I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment. So I'm going to change that from heading 1 to say heading 2. And I don't have a new album out, so I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to change this button title. So again, it's a case of just clicking on the element, clicking the little pencil icon, and I'm going to make this call to action, contact me. And that button's a little bit small, so I can edit that, tweak the design a wee bit so it's a bit bigger. Let's go with that. That looks a bit better. I'm going to do a save at that point. So there's Brandy Snap. There's the strap line. We need to change this image, however. And again, it's the same process. I click on the image. I click on the little pencil, and then I'm going to replace that image. And I'm going to upload this image from a file, much as you would do with an attachment adding to an email. So I click upload file. And you can see here, I've set up on my desktop all of the pages on my website as folders so I can keep all of my content neatly organized. So I need an image. I've got homepage intro. Click open. It'll take a moment to upload it to Squarespace's server. And there's my image. Okay. I'm going to click save. So we've changed the name, we've updated an image, and we fine-tuned that button. Let's refer back to our wireframe and see how that looks. So that's broadly in line with what we've got. So I'm pretty happy with that. The next one we're going to look at is session work. Okay, so that's the third element. So again, I'm going to go back to my Word document. I'm going to take this strap line, or this heading, and I'm just going to paste it in here. 25 years as a professional session guitarist. I don't really like this orphan here. See how this is wrapping over and appearing on one line. So I can just tweak that so that it appears on a single line. I've written some copy here. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to replace, whoops. If I double click in there, it just highlights it all. So there's my text. Let's do save. Hopefully you're getting a sense of how easy it is to use this interface. You know, once you've been using this for an hour or two, it all becomes fairly intuitive. Okay, we need to add this hire me button. So if I roll over this section, you can see it's got this option add block. If I click on that, there's a library of different things that I can do in here. So there's accordions, there's audio, there's video, there's forms, there's all sorts of stuff. I'm just going to include a simple button, and I'm going to give it a title, which is Hire Me. Okay, I can attach a link to that if I want that to link to a separate page. I'm just going to tweak the design of this so it's a bit bigger. Okay, and there's my button. The problem with that is the button doesn't really look right there, does it? On the left, it feels slightly incongruous with the design. Everything's nice and centered. So all I'm going to do, and this is where I'm going to show you the grid, I just click and drag it to where I want it to go. And it's as simple as that. Click save. So how are we doing for time? Not too bad. So I'm going to refer back to my wireframe. You can see that we've built the masthead, the introduction, and the session work. Let's have a go at putting this testimonial in. Okay. So I jump back into Squarespace. And this actually isn't a million miles away from what I want my testimonial to be like. So that's quite useful. So I just need to grab my text. So Brandy Snap is one of the finest guitarists it's been my pleasure of working with. That's what this testimonial says. Let's jump back into Squarespace and paste that in there. And we're going to give a credit to that person. So this has been provided very kindly by John Smith, the Smith brothers. So again, I'm going to paste that in there. I want this to be styled a little bit differently. Obviously, we need to write Brandy Snap in here. So just to differentiate the quote from the actual contributor, I'm going to put some quote marks, and I'm just going to change this style from a heading 2 to a heading 3. So it's a bit smaller. Cool. Okay. Now, that's obviously not Brandy Snap in the background, so I want to change that. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to edit. I don't know if you saw that. Each of these layers have this little floating menu where you can edit the section. So all I'm doing is I've got my mouse over this section. I click edit section, and I want to change that background image. So I click on the background tab, and it's exactly the same process. We click replace. We upload the file from our desktop, and I've got one prepared, which is homepage background. Open that. It'll upload to the Squarespace server. And there is my image. Now, the thing with that image is, from an accessibility point of view, it's not great that we've got white text on that background. So it's not as easy to read as it could be. So there's this little opacity tool here. So I'm just going to smooth that across to maybe 75%. So I can still see the guitar and the wig and the hat in the background, but now it's a lot more legible. Maybe we'll do it at 70%. There we go. Click Save. Okay, so our homepage is starting to take shape. Okay. Right, the next section, let's refer back to our wireframe. This is going to be the guitar tuition section. Okay, and this is composed of three blocks, if you like: private lessons, schools, and community. So let's jump back in here. So this block isn't really fit for purpose. This is showing a number of tour dates. Don't really need that. So I want to get rid of that. So if I roll over this section and I just click the remove button, it's gone. I don't really need this section either. So I'm going to remove that as well. And there's a discography below. I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to find a new section. So, we've got this website homepage. So I'm going to click Add Section. This pulls up a menu of options. So there's all kinds of things here. There are contact buttons. There are mugshots. If you've got a small organization, you want to have a bunch of staff in there. Services, I think we're going to use. Let me just show you some of these other ones. So there's a portfolio section if you want to add photography or images of your artworks, etc. Digital products if you're selling as well. Donations and scheduling. So there's all kinds of options here. I'm going to go for services, and I need to find a block which got three sections. That's not bad. This one looks perfect. Let's go with that one. So it just adds it to our design. And we can move these sections around as well. So if I wanted that above, I just click the up arrow and it moves above the testimonial. Okay. So quite simple. And it's a modular way of designing. So let's jump back into our, we're going to call this guitar tuition. So I can just type that in there. Okay. In this instance, I need to click edit content and I need to click on the title, get rid of that title. Actually, let's go back one step. Content. I'm going to change it from our services to guitar tuition. Not in uppercase though. Okay. Go back. And then you can see this component here is made up of three elements and it's called basic, intermediate, and advanced. We need to change that. So I'm again going to jump into my Word document where I've got all my text. So private lessons is the first one. So I'm going to change that from basic to private lessons. There's also a description for this, which I'm going to copy and paste in. You see how easy it is if I've pre-written all my content in advance. Now there's also, I'm going to upload an image in a moment. In fact, let's do that now. Let's click replace. Same process, upload the file from my desktop. So I find the tuition private, open that up. And there's my private image. Now I want some alt text. Now the purpose of alt text is to describe the content of the image for people who are partially sighted or are blind and are reliant on screen readers. So that's really important. And this is a really simple step that we can do to address that. So one-to-one guitar tuition, close-up of guitar. And I just paste that in there and click back. And that's my first block done. Okay, let's rapidly do these other blocks as well. So we'll click on intermediate. And the intermediate is tuition in schools. Just copy that. Paste that in there. And here is my text that describes the work that I do in schools and colleges. Let's upload an image. place that really quickly. No, that's not the right image. Hang on, let me change that. That's the Overlord. It's the school's image I want. That looks a bit better, doesn't it? Perfect. I would put the alt text in at that point. I'm just rattling through this now. Hopefully, you're getting the hang of this. Um, Third one, just for completion, is in the community. Change that. Just clicked off it there. So advanced is going to be in the community. And a little bit of copy to describe that service. And finally, we're just going to add in our image. Same process. And there is our go to our tuition section. So let's do a save. Let me take a glug of squash. Check my timings. Not too bad. Okay, so that gives you a sense, hopefully, of how straightforward it is to use this interface to create your website. And if you want to see it kind of realistically, there's a little arrow button here, and this shows it without the controls. So obviously, we've rattled through this quite quickly. It's not perfect by any means, but we can come back and fine tune that at our leisure. Okay, cool. So what I wanted to show you very briefly was what you would do if, let's say that we've gone through that process for all of the pages on our website and we're happy with it. We've linked them all together. There's a setup guide that Squarespace uses. And this is almost like a checklist of things that you need to do prior to launching your site. Now, you may have your own domain name, you may not. Squarespace gives you the option to either purchase a domain as part of your package or to link a domain that you already own to this. It's a bit technical, but not too much of a challenge. Not covering it off in this webinar, but it's a process that you do need to go through. And there's plenty of resources online to help you with that. And obviously, you can speak to us at the Digital Culture Network if you need help with that. Okay, so that is a bit rough and ready demo of our website. What I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to jump back into our presentation. And let me just click full screen. Hopefully you can all see that. Okay, so let's push on. Costs. I always get asked about costs. Bear with me a second. Let me just go back into, there we go. Doesn't want to present full screen for some reason. Okay. It's not going to present full screen. Hopefully you can see that. So these are the costs. So Squarespace is about £12 a month. You get a reduction if you commit to an annual plan. You can see some of the more expensive options here. These tend to be when there's more functionality, like, for example, e-commerce, where you're selling products. So there's a series of plans that you can sign up to. Wix is kind of slightly cheaper at £9, but it's a similar model. You pay for the simple version. If you want the increased functionality, then that is something that you pay for. There's loads and loads of great resources online. Squarespace has a number of webinars, video tutorials, it has a help center, and it has forums. Karis, hopefully you can put the link into the chat. Thank you very much. You can peruse those at your leisure. So if you built a site, for example, and you've got some technical problems with it, you can ask questions in the forums, and there's a community of people that will help you with that, which is really, really useful. And yeah, it's a great resource. So many of these, Wix similarly is well resourced, and you get a lot of assistance from the community. Okay, we're kind of drawing to the end of this section. We're going to go to Q&A shortly. What I wanted to firstly do is just flag up a couple of things that I have not spoken about in detail and kind of skated over, and that's SEO and accessibility. So SEO is search engine optimization. That is the process of configuring your site in such a way that it is attractive to Google and the other search engines. Okay, so if you want to have a conversation about that in a bit more detail, Monica Thomas is our SEO tech champion. She has very kindly provided a set of resources which will accompany this webinar when it is published on our website in the next week. So you can go through those, and a lot of them you'll be able to implement yourselves. My buddy today, Karis, she is our accessibility tech champion. Now, I've touched on some of the rudiments like alt texting of images, etc. There are lots of other things that you can do to make your website accessible. It's something we should all be working towards. And similarly, Karis has produced a document which will accompany the resources for this webinar. So you can look at both SEO and accessibility to make sure you're getting that right from the outset. My colleague, Catherine Brown, she is the tech champion for e-commerce. So if any of you are looking to sell your products or you have merchandise, you've got an online store, then Catherine is a great person to speak to, and she can give you lots of great advice around online selling. Okay. So in conclusion then, we have learned to define our website objective or objectives. We have had a go at creating a simple website structure or information architecture, as agencies tend to call it. We have written our website content. We've either sourced or had photography taken. We've got our audio files, our video files if we need them. We've got them all ready. We have had a go at defining our page layouts or wireframes. So we've got those kind of anatomies of all of the pages. They're all ready to go, and we've got that as a reference. And then we've gone into Squarespace, and in a slightly cack-handed way, I've shown you how to create a website homepage. You can go in and take your time, create your other pages. So that is pretty much it. I would like to just promote a couple of upcoming webinars. We've got two fantastic webinars coming up in April. On the 8th of April, smartphone photography, taking great photos for your online shop. Not one, but two tech champions presenting that. Dean Shaw and Catherine Brown. That is going to be absolutely fantastic. And then on the 22nd of April, Saddling Up for Success, James Akers, our tech champion for analytics and data, your guide to harnessing data. So that's going to be absolutely brilliant also. Okay, finally, if you want to get in touch with us, we're going to get to Q&A in a second, but just in case any of you drop out, I just want to say, if you want to get in touch with the Digital Culture Network, you can do so through our website, digitalculturenetwork.org.uk. You can send us an email at digitalnetwork@artscouncil.org.uk. You can also follow us on Twitter, sorry, Elon, and LinkedIn, and also YouTube. Feel free also to sign up to our newsletter, which you can access on our website. Okay, we're going to go into the Q&A. One final thing to say before we do, at the end of this webinar, firstly, thanks for attending. I really appreciate you turning up and sticking with me. You will receive a satisfaction survey. If I could trouble you to spend a minute or two to complete that, it really, really helps our webinar program, what we're doing right, what we're not doing right. It means that we can curate, a really, really good program of webinars to service the sector. Looking at my watch, I think we've got around about 10 minutes left. So, Karis, how are we doing with any questions?
We've got lots of very good questions.
Okay,
So are you ready? I will throw some in your
go on then.
direction.
Go on then.
Um,
I'll do my best to answer them.
Yep, I'm sure you will do perfectly fine. Let me see, where am I? Can you recommend a website host that is green or eco-friendly?
That is a really, really good question. Um, I'm glad that's been raised because that hasn't come up on this webinar, but sustainability is one of the big factors with modern web design. There are articles on our Knowledge Hub. In fact, I've done a webinar on this very topic. So if you go to our Knowledge Hub, you can find a few articles that I've written and that webinar. There is one that pops to mind, and that is called Crystal with a K. I believe they are one of the leading UK-based sustainable web hosts. So check them out. There are others. There is a website called, I believe from memory, the Green Web Foundation. And I think that lists a number of web hosts as well, which are fully sustainable and, are adhering to everything with regards, making sure your digital footprint, your carbon emissions are limited. So yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. Who did that come from, Karis?
That came from oh no, I've lost it because I've
Don't
scrolled.
worry, I shouldn't have asked the question.
Don't,
I should
don't
also
put me
point
on the
out,
spot.
Karis has only been with the team like a fortnight, and she's really thrown herself in at the deep end, being my buddy. So, Karis, really appreciate that.
Thank you. Glutton for punishment. Is there a reason you chose Squarespace to demo? Is it one of the better options? And if so, why?
Great question. I think I may have mentioned on one of the earlier slides. So when I did my research for this, Squarespace and Wix seem to be the top dogs in the web builder space. I demoed Squarespace rather than Wix because I just have got a bit of a history of building websites in Squarespace. So I knew my way around the interface. And, if I'd attempted to do the same in Wix in a live environment, I probably would have made a fool of myself. So yeah, I went with Squarespace. I don't think there's anything between them. They both they both score really, really highly in independent studies on web builders. So they're a really good starting point. There are others. And when you get a copy of this presentation deck in the next week, you can have a look at some of the other logos that I put in place there. Or just Google web builder and you'll find a bunch of them. I like them because I think the interfaces are nice and simple. Yeah, some of the other ones I've used are quite clunky. So I would kind of avoid the ones that are really cheap because, as a general rule of thumb, you get what you pay for. Squarespace like 12 quid a month, 9 quid a month for Wix. Okay, it's a financial outlay, but you're getting a good bang for your buck. If you really are strapped for cash, you could look at Google Sites. Google Sites offer a free website platform, and I have supported some cases where there is literally no budget available, and we've used Google Sites. It's not as sophisticated as Squarespace or Wix. You're very much more limited in what you can do, but it is a way to get a basic website up and running.
Thank you. Are the website builders good for video heavy content? If not, can they include videos hosted on Vimeo or YouTube, for example?
They can. In fact, Squarespace has, depending on which plan you're on, it has a hosting solution for video. So you can actually host video on the platform. I believe Wix is the same, which has the advantage of not having the YouTube controls at the bottom. Having said that, I think having your video content hosted on Vimeo or YouTube makes a lot of sense because those platforms are designed first and foremost for buffering and displaying video content. It's I should have actually demoed this in a little presentation. Actually, it's really simple to embed a video from YouTube or Vimeo into Squarespace or Wix. There's a little bit of code against each video when you click the share button, and you literally just paste that code into a little component within Squarespace, and almost like magic, the video will appear.
Brilliant, thank you. Couple more questions, maybe?
Yeah, I think we've got 5 minutes or so. Yeah, go for it.
Brilliant. So we have a few questions around SEO and tracking traffic and
Yeah,
analytics.
sure.
Could you go into a bit more detail about how you can add things like Google Analytics to the site?
Yeah, absolutely. So Squarespace definitely, and I think Wix have their own kind of native or inbuilt analytics package, which gives information about visitor numbers, popular pages, and that kind of stuff. Google Analytics tends to be the de facto analytics package that people use, and to get that, you just need a Google account. There is a specialist on our team, James Akers. If you need help integrating Google Analytics with your website, he can help. When you set up your Google account, you get literally a little snippet of code, and you just need to paste that into the code in Squarespace. That sounds complicated. When I say paste code, that sounds, oh my gosh. But in actual fact, Squarespace makes it really simple to do that. I'm sure that's the case with Wix as well. But if you've got any doubts about that, or you haven't got analytics and you'd like to have it, either on a website that you already have, or that you're planning to launch, then have a word with James Akers on our team. And there's a second part to that question, wasn't there? Search engine optimization. Sure. So yes, search engine optimization. So that is the process of organizing and writing your content and configuring your website in such a way that it is attractive to Google and Bing and other search engines. It's actually, the rudiments of it are actually quite simple. It sounds kind of scary, doesn't it? Search engine optimization, but yeah, the basics, the fundamentals aren't difficult to get to get to grips with. There's plenty of great information on our website and on Knowledge Hub around search engine optimization. So have a read of that. There are some webinars that we've done on the topic previously. And if you want some real hand holding, I can really recommend Monica on our team, who can help you with that whole process. So yeah, it's a good thing to consider from the outset.
Brilliant. I'll ask you one more. I think there's quite a few that we've touched on
Okay,
that we might need to go into more detail, but with the follow-up
sure.
resources and the recording of the webinar, we will try to answer everything at a later date.
Yeah.
But one more that's got quite a number of upvotes in the Q&A. Have you had experience using WordPress? Would you recommend using it to build a website in-house?
Yeah, I think WordPress comes in various flavors. So I've got quite a lot of WordPress experience from my kind of agency days, but I had the luxury of having a development team. So we would install WordPress, and I'd have, programmers who can configure it, however we wanted it to be configured. You can use WordPress as a web builder, and I think it's quite cheap actually, about £5 a month. And there is a free version of it as well. However, that carries advertising. So I wouldn't recommend that. Yeah, it's not a million miles away from the Squarespace interface. I think it's maybe slightly more involved. Squarespace is really designed, and Wix as well, for people with zero technical knowledge. I think WordPress is slightly more demanding. But if you're comfortable trying WordPress, yeah, that is a really great platform. There is a hosted solution, which means you don't need to worry about organizing your own website hosting. One of the key things with WordPress, and one of the reasons why organizations sometimes get tripped up with it, is that you need to have it it needs maintaining. It tends to use plugins, and the software is updated in a way that needs to be kept up to date to ensure that it's secure and not open to vulnerabilities. So there's a slight caveat, but for sure, have a look at WordPress alongside Squarespace and Wix, I would say.
Thank you, Andy. I think we can leave it there for questions. I'll answer a few in the chat that I can, but we can follow up with everything.
Okay.
And
Okay, that's great. Karis, thanks for being my buddy today. Thanks again, everyone, for attending. And just to repeat, if you could spare a moment or two to complete that questionnaire, the survey, would really appreciate that. And yeah, good luck with your web